So we are joined by Stanford men's basketball head coach and former Washington State head coach Kyle Smith. Coach, incredible season this past year, getting the Cougs to the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament, and two of the players that were so instrumental in getting you to that point were Isaac Jones and Jaylen Wells. Now, both of those guys declaring for the NBA. Back in September when you started the season, what kind of talent did you know that they had? And did you think that the NBA was possible for these two guys?
I'm kind of an optimistic person by nature, and I like to think of myself as someone kind of sees the seeds of greatness in everyone. And I always thought Isaac, well, he passes the eye test. You watch him run, his length, his size, and I was like, but Isaac was a little on the old. He's 23 years old, so I didn't know if that time had passed for him, but I knew he was a good player, and I shocked Jay Mullins when I told him. I said when we got him, I said, I think he's every bit as good as Muhammad, and he's like, no way, and I'm like, it's pretty close. He's older. He's older. He's older. He puts the ball in the basket. And then Jaylen, we weren't as sure, but once about a week into practice, when we worked with him, I turned to my staff and I said, this guy might be an NBA player. It more so has his drive, his relentlessness, his work ethic, his size helps and his skill, but just he's so determined, and you could kind of tell he's just a hungry, no nonsense guy. I said, this guy's gonna, keep getting better and better because of his mindset. And he's only 20, and he behaves like a 35-year-old pro. So he's, I could see both of those guys having opportunities.
So I assume that a lot of maybe GMs and scouts reach out to you throughout this process. You've coached NBA players in the past here. What kind of feedback have you heard, if at all?
Great. It's been nothing but really positives. I think, I think being in Pullman, not as everyone's as hardworking as they claim to be. They don't necessarily get out and watch us as much. So I think I was like, we almost won the Pac-12. So I'm still the same coach. So there's probably some other guys that had some involvement here. And what's funny is that Isaac just keeps getting better and better. Like he looks, he just got married. It's unbelievable, and really happy for him. But he looks leaner, and it's probably the best shape he's ever been. All these, and it's really just been these workouts, and he's got another level of athleticism when he gets himself in shape. So, and I think he kind of surprised some people, and then like the Warriors were really impressed with him, and then they measured him, and he's the same size as their starting centers with Kevin Looney. That's how big we were. Kevin Looney and Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's longer than Trace Jackson Davis, and maybe not quite as tall as Looney, but he's right in that same size. So that's been really positive. And and the way they handle themselves, they're just really great people. Their character's really high, and I think that they can convey that in an interview and in these workouts. And like I said, Jaylen's just been going at it nonstop, and just like I said, kind of insatiable in his work ethic and his drive, and the GMs and guys have noticed that.
So it seems like half the battle of getting to the NBA is simply just, do you fit that size for the position that you play? We talk about Isaac and that massive wingspan that he has, and then Jaylen's also pretty big for his position as well. What specifically makes their games NBA ready?
You hit on some things. If you don't have the dimensions, it's going to be tough. Then you're an outlier. If you don't, and like I said, Isaac has a 7'3" wingspan. He has no neck, so standing reach, and so he can play multiple. He can guard 1 through 5, and that's and keep people in front of him. His length, like I said, the more reps it gets there, so that ability, and he puts the ball in the basket. So for him, the feedback's been, do you think he can stretch his perimeter game to where he can make threes? And I do. And the way he improved himself from the free throw line, so he's from that. And then, like you said, Jaylen, I think he measures 6'8" with shoes on, and he's really he's a 3-and-D guy waiting to happen. He's 6'8". He's not necessarily as long, but he's big. He's 6'8", and he makes threes, and he's strong, and he's tough. He's determined. He can guard guys. He can switch likes. He can keep guys in front of him, and just the growth. He was in Division II 15 months ago. On a very, I'd be hard pressed to say good Division II team, the very average Division II team. So to go from there to start on the, an NCAA tournament team that won the first round, it was finished up 22nd in the country. He just probably breaking through all kinds of hurdles mentally and physically.
What are going to be the biggest hurdles in making a final roster for both these guys? I know NBA is maybe the most difficult sport to get on the team.
I think it's opportunity. I think you got to find fit matters. the right organization, the style of play, the way and what they're willing. Like I said, I'm excited the Warriors showed some interest. I don't know how. I do know that Joe Lacob owns the Warriors, and he's a Stanford grad. I'll plug that. Or great business school, and his son works for him, and he's a undergrad. So the fact they do, but the way they play, they're unique in their style of play, and it's neat that I think they could see how Isaac is easy to play with, and so getting an organization like that, I think would be really helpful for him. I think if other organizations can't figure out what position to play him, I'm like, just play him. He's good, and no one gets that better than Golden State with Steve Kerr, and then like Jaylen. Is again, he's young, so I think he's got youth on his side. So they're going to give him whether it's a two-way or which would be awesome. I encourage him to go back to college just because there's money out there and he's obviously very determined in his agent's representation. I think they have some good opportunities, and he's kind of that guy that's so driven that he's like, I'm close. I might as well start here, and he is young, so he's kind of got youth on his side, and he's just a guy like I say, he's going to get better and better, and getting reps, playing minutes, going to what will get him there.
Have you been able to stay in contact with them? Just sort of give them little pointers here and there, or just text?
Yeah, just text with Jaylen. Jaylen's pretty driven and focused, and actually, I knew he was in Cleveland today, and I got Coach Frankowski, who works with us here now, used to be on player development side in Cleveland, so we know a lot of people there, and he did really well. So that was great to hear. And then from his management or his agent and that, and there's the Pacers really like him a lot, and kind of like, and they got a pick there in the late 30s or something like that, and so there's nice that there's people circling around a good spot for him, and he's just so appreciative. He's about a two-word response.
Right.
And then Isaac, man, I was two-stepping at his wedding, so I got to see him up in Tacoma. A little shout out to him and Malia on their way in their journey, and he's a pretty simple guy. He loves basketball, Jesus, his wife, and his dog. And I'm not sure if that's the right order, but or it's supposed to be, but he's just what a wonderful human being. Both of them are, and Isaac's just very he's what makes him special is he kind of go with the flow. You can coach him hard, whatever, and his self-esteem is invested in how he performs. And like I said, he's got great perspective on everything.
What's that like for you to see, guys every year, every few years go off and, try to chase that dream. And then, some of them end up getting selected, in the first or second round.
I used to worry about it now, but it must be me in the sense that these guys they have a chance to go to the NBA, they do it. And it's like against my advice oftentimes, but I think part of what our program is, and we always explain, like my why is to empower others to empower themselves. And they listen, and they're kind of bet on themselves guys. And that was kind of it'll be here at Stanford too, but at Washington State, it's like, hey, you win the Pac-12, opportunity to play against the best. You want to go for it. And they kind of crushed it. And they're like, they want to keep it going. And that's kind of we got a success. And we lost guys, Muhammad and CJ Ellaby, probably a year before I wish they had gone. But it's kind of when you instill that in them, they kind of buy into it. And Jaylen, last guy, I kind of thought would just bet on himself in this situation because he's a really good student. I was hoping he could get into Stanford. But he's just like, I'm going for it. And I was like, gave him all the necessary cautions, everything else. And it's neat to see. And same thing with, guys I've coached with. I mean, that's kind of where my joy is, watching those guys, progress through the business, and now having guys that are right on the doorstep to being NBA players. The one guy that shocked me that's not in this process is Miles. He was the most I told him to. I said he's a guy that should have gone in this situation and got some feedback, and then he still have the opportunities to go back to college and that. But he's I don't know. Mom might have said, no, you're staying in college for one more. Make sure you get the degree and playing. But he I think there's a reason we were good, and some of these guys are obviously close.
What was your initial reaction? Obviously, you had departed for Stanford, and then Miles was in the portal. What was your reaction when you first heard he's going to Indiana?
It didn't surprise me because he has a really close relationship with one of the assistants, Yasir Rosman, and he helped us get him to Washington State when he didn't have a job, and it was during COVID. So that was, and Miles, I think, is very relationship driven, and what a storied program and opportunity for him, and their NIL significant too, where it's really life-changing money for him. But he'll get his education and he'll do both things, and he'll be a headache for those other coaches in the Big Ten when they have to try to keep him in front.